Welcome into this week's edition of Bud Light Hog Talk. I'm your host, Slavko Bekovic. Thanks for joining us here on 23.2 Antenna TV. And thanks for everyone here at District Bar and Grill, just a block away from the BMO Harris Bank Center. Another great show lined up for you this week. First, we'll have IceHogs assistant coach Ben Simon. Later in the show, we'll have a couple newcomers, one new face, one that you might remember, Byron Fraze and Joachim Nordstrom, joining us later in the show. But first, we'll start with you, Ben Simon. Thanks for joining us. And how about a nice round of applause for the IceHogs assistant coach?
Thank you.
Another solid weekend for the IceHogs, picking up 3 out of 4 points. Monday, normally an off day, but with the Wednesday game, you guys decided to go with an optional skate.
Yep.
What's kind of the process there? Most guys decided to just kind of use it as a rest day, I'm assuming?
Yeah, a lot of guys just didn't come to the rink today. We spent all day yesterday traveling from Abbotsford back here, and it's a long day. We were up at, the bus left in the morning at 7:30, so you're up at 6:30, and then on a plane for 4 or 5 hours into Chicago on the bus here, and we didn't get home probably to Rockford till about 6:30 or 7 p.m. So it was a long day.
Was it? Would you prefer to kind of spend the night there Saturday in Abbotsford like you guys did, and then have that the early morning trip back to Rockford and spend that entire Sunday off, or what's kind of your preference as a coach for that travel back from British Columbia?
Well, for that it's better. I mean, I think it's better just to stay that night and then fly back the next day. It's it is what it is. There's really nothing you can do about it. But you're getting a good night's rest of sleep, and then. It's a terrible day the next day, but either way, it's that or a really, really long night if you take the red eye back. So
yeah,
it's I prefer just after the game shut it down there and then getting up early and then hitting it from there.
From a coaching perspective, what do you try to get done on a day like today? Do you work on the guys that are there and try to just kind of get them back in game shape, get them ready for Wednesday? Are you scouting your next opponent? What's kind of the process on an optional skate game like today when not everyone's there?
It's just very loose. I mean, guys that need to skate will skate. The goalies, Carter Hutton that didn't play, he'll go take some shots, and then from the coaching aspect, it's just kind of go over the last 2 games that we had, kind of look at things we did well, look at things we didn't do so well, and kind of correct a few things, and then on top of that, start looking ahead to Toronto for Wednesday.
Well, like we said, Friday, Saturday, 3 out of 4 points in the 2 games against Abbotsford. Friday night, a very complete team win, 5-2 over Abbotsford. You guys have got to be pretty pleased coming out of that game with the full 2 points and a good start. Got up to a nice lead, maybe a little slow there finish, giving them a couple goals back at the end of the game. But still, 5-2, you'll take that every time.
Yeah, well, 3 out of 4 points there after a long travel. It's a tough trip to get out there. It's a little bit. The jet lag there and the 2-hour time difference. So your bodies for the players aren't really used to it. You're kind of waking up a little early and not really completely adjusted to everything. So to go out that far, that ways of away, and to get 3 out of 4 points is huge. So we'll take it. We would have wanted 4 out of 4, but taking 3 out of 4 is very good.
How troubling was that preparation for Friday's game with the trip obviously out all the way up to British Columbia? It's a 2-hour time zone difference as well, so there's a lot to adjust before that Friday puck drop.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, you try and just stay up a little later so you're not waking up too early, and just trying to drink as much water and stay hydrated so that the little things like that can't factor into it. You take care of everything off the ice as well as you can so that things really correlate on the ice.
And then on Saturday, the team falls behind 2-0, get 2 goals to come back and tie it, a late goal to fall, but then with 10 seconds left, Olesh comes back and ties it up. It almost reminded me of that Clendening goal from a couple weeks back, last second, just to find a way to get it to overtime. Unfortunately, Horak scores in overtime to give them the extra point. Nonetheless, you got to like the battle, and consistently this season, the team has done a great job in third period.
Yeah, it's been huge, and you get those late goals that tie the game with a couple seconds left, and it's huge. You can see the emotion on the bench and the guys just happy for each other, and it's hard to describe the feeling, but the guys are excited. We know that we're in a dogfight for the last playoff spot here, last couple playoff spots. So just to feel the emotion, the guys have really dug in, and when you see everyone just the happiness on the bench when things like that happen, it's a good sign.
Now, you mentioned today obviously was loose, optional skate. Has that kind of been the pulse of the team over the last maybe month or so, coming off that 6-game losing streak back at the beginning of February? The team's been on a roll, really. You've got to think the team right now obviously playing with a lot of confidence, but in that dressing room, are guys just kind of being free and loose and having a good time?
Well, things are a lot easier when you're winning, obviously,
sure.
But I think the leaders on our team, our leadership group there, we've got a good core group of guys that have been around, and I think they've taken charge of the room, and I think they've done a tremendous job of keeping the things pretty even-keeled, not getting too down, down on the dumps when we lose, and not getting too excited when we win a few. So I think it's a credit to them and the leaders in our team, the players on our team that have done a great job.
When you break down the schedule, or at least when I look at it, 14 out of the last 19 games, the IceHogs have earned points in those games. And that goes back to that 5-4 comeback win in Texas on February 5th. I kind of like to look at that as a bit of a turning point, at least we're looking at where we stand right now. That game swung the momentum back in the favor of, hey, we can come back, we can beat any team. Texas, still the #1 seed in the Western Conference.
Yeah.
As a coach, do you look back on that game at all and say maybe that kind of swung the momentum, or is that just it's in the past, we try to take it one game at a time?
Yeah, I mean, that was a huge, I don't know if that's a turning point in our season. I think that obviously that was a huge win to beat the #1 team on the road and steal points from them, but we're focusing on the next game now. I mean, we're not at a point where we can kind of look back. We have to really focus in on the next game and do as best we can that game, and then after that, it's the next game, because at this point of the year, every next game is your biggest game.
Are you satisfied with how the team's been playing recently, or do you think that there's still lots that can be improved?
Well, we're satisfied with the results, but in saying that, I think that there's a lot of things that we can do better as individuals and as a team. I mean, there are certain things you'll never be satisfied with, because we know some of our guys are so talented and you expect so much more from them. So.
Sure.
You're never really satisfied, and if you can correct a few things, you always think, oh, geez, if we can do this a little bit better, we could be so much more better. So, as from a coaching perspective, it's you always want more from your guys.
Can you pinpoint one thing that's kind of turned this team around? And right now, there's a winning culture to the IceHogs. It seemed for a while that they kind of forgot how to win games. And Peck and I talked about there were so many close games that they were in, but they just couldn't pull out the 2 points or get a point even. So, what would you say, if anything, was the biggest key to the turnaround?
I couldn't pinpoint one thing. I think it's the guys. I think it's the character in our room. I think it's the players that we have here, and the team that we've assembled, over the last 3-4 months with guys that we've picked up or called up from the East Coast League, and guys that we've picked up through trades or just signed on PTOs or ATOs and stuff like that. I think it's not necessarily the play itself, but the guys and the character and the work ethic and those intangibles that are brought to the table as well.
8-2-0-1 over the last 11 road games going back to February 20th. Do you feel the team plays better on the road compared to home, or maybe it's just that kind of natural hockey instinct of keeping it simple on the road?
A little bit of both. I mean, when you're on the road, you're kind of in more of a routine. There are less distractions. For example, go out to Abbotsford, you're on the bus, you're in the hotel, you're eating at this time, you're sleeping at this time, you're going to the rink at this time. It's very, it's very structured, very, set in stone. Where you're home, you might go to a movie, you might do this, you might go out for dinner. There's no really gray area on the road. It's more of a habit, more of a ritual, and so there's less distraction. So that might be something to do with it. But if I could pinpoint that too, it'd be we'd do that at home.
And as a player, or I guess from your playing days, obviously every player wants to play in front of their home crowd, a sellout crowd when they're behind you and whatnot. But do you feel like you can focus more on the road? Is there a preference to playing on the road versus at home?
No, I mean, you always want to play at home in front of your fans, and you love playing in front of a great crowd here, and we've got some very passionate fans here. So we've had great crowds here, and unfortunately, a lot of times we haven't performed well when we've had huge crowds here. So it's unfortunate for them, but hopefully we turn things around at home here and win a few games coming down the stretch at home.
Well, one of the statistical aspects of the team right now that's doing well, obviously the power play ranked #1 in the American Hockey League. I think it's 22.1% now.
Yeah.
Pretty darn good overall.
Yeah.
Peary, Morin, St. Pierre, your top scorers, your top point guys, they're getting it done, not only even strength, but especially on the power play. What is your kind of analysis of the power play recently? They went through a little bit of a struggle.
No, they've been huge, and those guys, we were talking a couple weeks ago, it's a credit to them. They do a lot of homework on the other team's penalty kill and their players and everything, so they know what to expect going into a game. So not only are they tremendously skilled, but they're pretty smart as well, and they do their homework, and they're very prepared when a power play comes to execute. And when you have more than one player to key on, it spreads kind of our threats out. So if a team focuses on, say, Peary, okay, you know what, that leaves Morin open. Or if you're focusing on St. Pierre, that leaves Olish open. There's certain things when you have that depth that open up other opportunities.
Jimmy Hayes getting the recall to Chicago, obviously a loss for the IceHogs going into this playoff run here in the month of April, or going into April. But then you replace that with Rostislav Olish, who was one of the top scorers on the IceHogs last year. What does he bring to the IceHogs as far as his game and compared to what he did last year?
Well, we lost a Boston accent and picked up a Czech one. I don't know which is worse. But no, when Jimmy got called up, it's great for him. He absolutely deserved it. He worked hard for it. So, as a coach, that's just awesome. I mean, that's why you're here, and that's what you try and do. You develop the guys to get them on to the next level. But, when you have one guy leaving, another guy has to step up, and Olish came in, but other guys have also elevated their game. So, there are plenty of other guys that I'm sure will get their opportunity in Chicago if and when that comes, and then other guys are going to have to elevate their game as well.
One of the guys likely to get that next shot, Jeremy Morin, has been on an absolute tear for well over a month now. When you look at his maybe game tape or what he's done on the ice in the last month or two compared to the beginning of the season, to me it looks like he's a totally different player. He's taking smarter shots, maybe being smarter overall on both sides of the ice is something that we've noticed as well. Defensively, he's stepped up his game as well.
Yeah, he's defensively, you're right. He has been a little bit more reliable in that aspect. We've even used him on the penalty kill a bit, and he's done great there. He's had a couple of great chances offensively on that. And I think his compete level has been more consistent the last couple of months, and he hasn't taken any shifts off. I think he's been more of a consistently complete player lately.
Yeah, he's been on the PK, added a shorthanded goal, I believe, a couple weeks back in Chicago. What is with this team and the shorthanded goals? I think 9 now on the season. Mills gets credit for the shorthanded penalty shot goal
I guess
from
that
this
does.
weekend, which is kind of rare. But
yeah.
It seems when the team's on the PK, their first priority to get the puck out of the zone. But there's always somebody streaking down the ice looking for a breakaway, trying to get that offense going from the opposite side.
Yeah, no, the guys, we have a high pressure mentality. We want to try and not allow the other team to get set up in their routes on the power play. So, when you're pressured from the other side on the power play and you're forced to make plays you don't want to make, that sometimes creates turnovers. And if we have some opportunistic players out there like Moore and like you said, Mills and other guys like that can pounce on those opportunities, those turnovers, and put in the back of the net. That it's great.
How demoralizing is it for an opponent to give up a shorthanded goal, especially when a game is tight?
Yeah, well, it's terrible. You never want to give up a shorthanded goal against, but they do happen. But to give one up, it's pretty deflating. It's like, wait a second here, and looking at numbers, there's no way that should happen.
Right.
But it does. So.
Coming into this weekend, Abbotsford and Rockford pretty much neck and neck with a number of other teams in the Western Conference. Right now, a 4-way tie for the 8th and final playoff spot between the IceHogs and 3 other teams, Chicago, Oklahoma City, and Abbotsford.
Yep.
Have you ever seen the Western Conference this tight, this late in the season?
Well, you've seen some crazy races here. And when I was a player, you saw teams that were winning. And I think there was one years ago where there were the top 8 teams or 10 teams had over 90 points, and there were teams that had 92, 93 points that didn't make playoffs.
Right.
So, in terms of the points themselves, I don't know, but it is tight here with having so many teams still in the mix, so tight, so late in the year. Usually you have a little bit clearer picture at this point of the year, but it is kind of crazy to see that 4 or 5 teams vying for the top 7 through 11 or 6 through 11.
One of the teams that you'll face this weekend is Milwaukee. They're 2 points ahead of you in the division and in the Western Conference. They hold on to the number 7 seed right now. How big are these head-to-head games with teams you're either right ahead, right below,
huge.
or
Yeah.
even within the standings?
Yeah, they're huge. When you're playing head-to-head games, we call them 4-point games because those are 2 points that we potentially can win, and those are 2 points that they can never potentially get back. So, we call them 4-point games, and we play them, 3 more times?
I believe so, yeah.
3 more
twice
times.
on the road in April.
So there's, that's 6 points times 2. Those are 12-point games against them. So those 3 games are huge, and we're really gonna have to focus when we're playing them, and it's gonna be a dogfight.
How closely are you looking at the schedule for the IceHogs, but as well as other teams and where they stand right now? The IceHogs, a couple games in hand over a few teams they're right there in the Western Conference. Does that concern you at all that you've played a number of games more than some of the opponents?
Yeah, well, it doesn't concern us, but we have one eye on the other teams, what they're doing, but we're more focused on what we're doing. If we win and we beat the teams that are ahead of us, we hopefully can control our fate a little bit here.
Toronto comes to the BMO on Wednesday. You guys haven't seen them much at all recently, and obviously only one other time this season. But how much do you know about Toronto? How much has the scouting kind of gone in full force for you guys in the last few days?
Well, they're a different team than when we saw them last because the lockout wasn't there.
Right.
The lockout was still going on, so they've lost a few guys to the NHL, but they've also got a few guys up from the East Coast League, and they've signed some guys and made some trades, and they got sent down from Toronto the other day, Mike Komisarek, who's a tremendous bona fide NHL player.
Right.
So they've got tremendous depth. They are a very skilled team. They've got a couple guys that are out with injury right now, and they got a couple guys that Ryan Hamilton, their top goal scorer, was called up. I'm not sure if he'll be sent down or not, but they're a very dangerous offensive team, and they're very good at faceoffs. They create a lot of offensive opportunities off of faceoffs.
And then you close out the weekend Saturday against Oklahoma City, who you just saw a couple weeks back down in OKC. They come back. Obviously, you guys know them pretty well.
Yeah, well, yeah, we just played them recently, so they're a pretty well-coached team and pretty disciplined team. So it'll be interesting. It'll be we just saw them, and we had success in their building, so I'm sure they'll want to return the favor coming to ours.
3 games in 4 nights. How does that compare to a 3-3, which is what the IceHogs have been doing a lot of recently?
Yeah, well, 3 and 4 is a little bit different because you get a day in between, and when you're playing well, you just want to keep playing. You want to continue playing. You don't want to give the guys too much rest to kind of get unfocused there. But 3 and 4 when you play Wednesday and then Friday, Saturday, that Thursday in between is huge just for rest. And it gives you a day where guys can look at their shifts and you can look at video and kind of slow things down for a little bit and correct things that need to be corrected. And then before, when you're playing 3 and 3, you hardly have time to really the game's over, it's in the books, and you're focused on the next team. So that day in between is huge just to kind of tighten up a few things or address a few issues that need to be addressed.
What would you have planned regularly on that Thursday? Just a short morning skate or as a rest day?
No, guys will skate. It'll be just a lighter day. Maybe working the power play, penalty kill, stuff like that. Or guys will just ride the bike a little bit longer and maybe not go on the ice, but just come in, go through your routine, and watch video. And as a player, systematically what can we do and what we're looking forward to against other teams. Gives us more time that actually prepare as well for the teams we're going to face.
6 points online this weekend. Let's get all of them, huh?
We'll try.
Keep it rolling, Si.
All right, thanks.
All right, that's IceHogs assistant coach Ben Simon. Let's give him a nice round of applause.
Thank you.
Thanks for the time, Si. Good luck, and we'll be back with more Bud Light Hog Talk coming up right here on 23.2 Antenna TV.